One other photographic image that I have in my final layout is this underground sign. I did the underground sign a little bit differently than the others. If I turn off these other images, you can see that the underground sign, rather than a smooth, gradual blend into the background, there's a hard-edged contour. And maybe we could see this better if I was to increase the opacity to 100, and let's put on the normal. Let's put that back and take a look at how I did that. If I open up this underground image, I have a path embedded in this image. And the path is hard to see. If we zoom in, we can kind of see the contours of the path. If I go to the path selection tool and I select it, you can start seeing these nodes on the path. And actually, let's see, if I turn that layer off, you can see the path. And I created the path using the pen tool. So the pen tool in Photoshop works in the same way as the pen tool in Illustrator. And what I did is I started by drawing kind of roughly around the contours of the sign using the pen tool. All right. And this took me quite a while because it's sort of a detailed shape, but starting roughly, going all the way around. And I'm just, for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to do it really rough so we don't spend a lot of time on it. But I started with this rough path and then I refined it. So I refined it by selecting the path, selecting the little nodes, and then I can move these nodes to where I want to. I can adjust the handles and that sort of thing. For the corners, holding Option Command gives you this corner tool. And then what I do to make an angled corner is I select the node here, the handle, and then I drag that into position. All right, so I went through and I did that all around. So I'll just refine this one little part. All right, so you can move your points on the path. You can adjust the handles to turn them in order to refine your path. Option Command on the Mac will allow you to create a corner. And this is how I went about doing it. So rather than take the time to go through and refine this entire thing, let's just live with this rough path because I want to show you the next step. So let's say that you refine this path and it's exactly the way you want it. It's like the path that I have, which follows the contours exactly. Well, as you create a path with the pen tool, you'll get something called a work path, and this is in the Paths window. And if you cannot find the Paths window, then go to the window menu and just choose Paths and it'll appear. So you'll end up with something called a work path. So you can name the path if you want to. You may have more than one path in a single image. So I'll call this demo path, not demon path, but demo path. And when I rename it, it's automatically going to save this path so that I can reselect it again like I did for my original. And then I can create a selection out of this path. So if I drag this path down over to this little selection button, it'll give me the marching ants, and which is just what I call a selection. And if I hit delete, then I'm deleting what's inside of the selection. But in this case, I actually want to delete outside of the selection, so I'm going to go to the select menu, choose inverse, and then hit delete. All right, now that's my really rough path, but if I was to use my actual path that I created previously, then I'm going to have a lot better results. So let's try that. All right, so that contour looks really good. Again, if I just hit delete, I'm going to delete the everything inside the path, which is the sign, and that's not what I want. So let's undo that. I want to choose select and then inverse, and there's a keyboard shortcut for that as well. And then I'm going to hit delete. Command D to deselect. And if I go back to my layers panel, the checkerboard pattern indicates a transparency, meaning there's no color in any of the pixels back there. And then what I can do is go back to my move tool. So let's go ahead and drag our underground sign onto the poster. And then I'm going to choose the mode I used is lighten, and I'm going to change the opacity to 50. And actually, there's just too much of this background image showing, so I'm going to go back to my London Eye layer, and I'm going to choose that layer mask, and then I'm going to go ahead and just hide a bit more of that layer so that I can see my underground sign a little bit better. And that effect is working pretty well. If you want to use the pen tool in Photoshop to create a path and then make a selection from that path to create a hard edge kind of a contour around an object, that's a really good technique to use. In fact, depending on your concept, you could do the entire poster that way.